joining me today. I'm Stephanie, part of Card Creators Plus, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make a really pretty stepper card, and it's even got an added bonus of a bookmark. So stay with me. I'm going to turn the camera around now and show you how to make it. Okay, a couple of things that you might find useful before we start making the card. I've made this template. It's got the measurements, cut line and score lines on. So it saves you having to try and remember. I don't know about you, but I hate it if I have to try and remember measurements and things when I'm watching something. So if you want to take a screenshot of it, please be my guest. But if you're a member of our Facebook group, you will find a link in the files to both the template and an SVG. So with that, we can get rid of that. The other thing is really about the tools that we're going to use today. And to make this card, we don't need many. The first one, if you've got, which is ideal, is a paper trimmer. If it's one with a scoring tool in as well, that is ideal. Mine used to have a scoring tool in it years ago. I have no idea what I did with it. I took it out at some stage, didn't put it back in and lost it. So today I will be using the paper trimmer and a scoreboard. And those are the only real big tools that you need. If you're somebody that's just starting out on a crafting journey and you're not 100% sure whether it's going to be the thing for you, but you're thinking, oh, I'd like to have a go at making something like that, you can make it quite easily and quite inexpensively with a couple of things, well, 4 things actually. A metal ruler, a craft knife, an embossing stylus and a piece of foam. The kind that you used to get in at the back of mouse mats. That's so it's got a little bit of density to it, so that when you actually score, it sort of beds into it quite well. And if you've got those, you are good to go to make this card as well. Okay, so those are the things that you need. So we'll get rid of those for now, and then we'll actually start making the card. I've got my cardstock here, and I've cut it to size. I needed obviously a piece of card that's 7 3/4 by 11 inches, and it's a hammer card this, and it's 300 GSM. Now if ever I'm making a card, particularly a fancy fold card, I always like to make sure that it's a good strong card, and 300 GSM I think is spot on. 250 you'd get away with probably with just an ordinary folding card, but really and truly, if you're going to make cards that have got some folds in them, extra folds, you want it to be nice and sturdy, and 300 GSM is great for that. It will stand up proud, won't fall down, and it'll hold all the embellishments that you want to put on it. So I would always go for 300, not any less. Okay, we'll make the card now then. So I'm going to start with the paper trimmer. And for this card, the actual step part is 2 3/4 inches. And the cut starts at 1 inch up, so you've got the first step here. So what I'm going to do is cut the card, line it up, make sure I've got it absolutely right, because I want to get it to 2 3/4 inches. I'm just making sure I line it up properly. I've pushed my blade down at 1.5 inches, so that when I cut into it, I know I'm in the right position. And it's got to be cut from 1.5 to 7 inches. So it's on the 1.5 inch mark. I'm going to go up to 7, bring it back down again, so that's a nice clear cut. That's your cut done, and that is all you need your trimmer for. So we can put that away now. Now I'm going to get the scoring board, and we'll do the scoring. It's a really easy card, this, to make. Right, okay, so what we want to do, we want to score the steps. So that's on the narrow part, not on the main base of the card. So we'll put this into the scoreboard and we'll start to score it. So as I said, the cut started at 1.5 inches up, and the first score line is at 1.5 inches. So you're going to score at 1.5, but only to the cut line. No further. Can you see there's a cut line and then the score at 1.5. The next score line is going to be 3 inches. So again, score just to the cut line. And the last one is where the cut finished is at 7 inches. And those are the only steps that you need for the actual step apart. So we've got a score line at 1.5, a score line at 3 inches, and a score line at 7. I'm going to flip the card over because now we're going to do the score line that is on the actual card part, not on the stepper. And if you remember, the card is 11 inches in length. So half of 11 is 5.5, and that's where the card will fold in the half point. So this part I'm going to score at 5.5 inches, but only to the score line. We're not going to go through the score, just to the score line. And that is actually the card base done. It's just a case of doing the folds now. Don't know if that's come on. Okay. Right. So the best thing to do first is to actually just gently fold the main card part and make sure that you've got that exactly level. Okay. So we just do that and fold it and burnish that. Okay. Now for the actual part that's the stepper, there's only one valley fold, the other two are mountain. So you're just going to gently tease it first, don't squash it down straight away. So the first one is a mountain fold, just gently press it. The next one is a valley, gently press that, and then the mountain fold again. Okay. So if you just go down with those like that and then burnish them really well, all of them. And don't forget to burnish the one that's underneath as well. This one, the one that was the valley fold. Give that a good burnish as well. Okay. And now how easy was that? There's your card base done. Ready for us to start working on. So I've got the layers here, so we'll start with this. And I thought you don't want to watch me start cutting and gluing lots of layers, but I will explain to them as I go along, then you know. Whenever I make a card base, I like to do it 1/4 inch less for the layers. When I'm doing matting and laying, I do 1/4 inch less on each layer, and that gives a 1/8 inch border around it. So as we cut this, the width of this is 5 inches. So my first layer I've done at 4 3/4. The next layer I've done at 4 1/2. The length of it is 5 1/2. So again, it's 5 1/4 for the next layer, and then 5 inches for the next. So that just makes a nice layer the whole way around. And you've got 1/8 inch. When I stick this on now, you'll have 1/8 inch border whole way around. And I've done exactly the same with this. Just look at this one here. This measures 4 inches. So the pink layer is 3 3/4. The flowered layer is 3 1/2. It's 2 3/4 wide. So again, it's 2 1/2 for the pink layer and 2 1/4 for the flowered layer. The little panel at the bottom is again 2 1/2 because it's the same width as that, but it's 1 1/4 inches, and the top layer, the flowered layer, is 1 inch. So those are the layers. So I'm going to stick those on now. As I said, I did the layers early because I thought you don't want to watch me gluing layers on, so we'll get this done as quickly as we can. Okay. Whoops, throwing my glue. I'll make sure I've got the flowers the right way around. I don't want to put it on upside down. Okay, so I can just manoeuvre that about till I get a nice even layer around the sides. And if I wasn't doing this, what I normally do when I glue anything down, I stick it under a weight like 2 or 3 books or something like that, so that it really sort of helps it to stick down. Okay, now let's do this one. Make sure I get the flowers again the same way. And glue this one down. Give a good press to make sure it's all glued and it's stuck. And then last but not least, the little one. And that's the mats and layer part done. Okay, try and get those even so they line up with the one above it. Okay. That's the actual card base done with the mats and layers. I'll explain about this in a minute, because this is a little pocket that the bookmark is going to go in, but I'm just going to leave it to one side for now, and I'm going to get the actual top part. Okay, now what I've done earlier on, I'm going to explain about this before we do anything else. If you thought that this card's quite big, I don't want to do one, I'd like to do the fold, but I don't want to do a card as big. It doesn't matter if you cut it and make it smaller. You can make a smaller side stepper, you can make this smaller, you can cut it off. It would not affect the mechanism. As long as it's the 11 inches, it doesn't matter how narrow you cut it. But what I did, I knew that I wanted to do this. So I think if ever you're deciding on planning a card, look at what the embellishments are and the things you're going to use. And I knew that I wanted to use these 2 dies. So I actually looked at the size of them, and then I decided how big I wanted that to be. I wanted to use this for a little pocket for the bookmark, which I cut out and then cut a smaller piece off, because I knew that that would fit in there. Now if you thought, I don't want to do a card as big as this, if you say only want to do something, you look at the embellishments that you're going to put on it. Let's say for argument's sake you wanted to put something like that on. You could quite easily have cut that card down there and it would be a lot smaller card. But it's entirely up to you. But I would always, before I designed the card, I would think of the things that you're going to use and then plan that round your card. Because in the past I've done a card design and then I've come to get the dies out or the embellishments, and they're too big for what I want to use it for. So always plan around what you're going to use before you actually do your base design. I hope that's helpful. Right, I'll pop that there for now out of the way. And what I've done with this, I've already put tape on the back. I wanted it to be raised up a little bit. So I'll find my poke tool and we'll take this off and take the pieces off the back. Get rid of those. I bought this tape from, I think you've probably got dollar shops in the US. I was at pound shops, and I must admit, I won't be buying it again. It's really tacky stuff and it sticks to everything, so I think I'll look for and use a bit better dimensionals in future, but it served its purpose for now. Okay, so line this up and stick that down, and that's that bit done. Okay. Now for the decorating, I'll put this on first and then I'll explain. So I use the die and I cut it down, and what I've done, I've put really thin red liner tape around the outside. Because we're going to fit a bookmark in, and the bookmark is 1.5 inches in width, and this little pocket is 2 inches. I only wanted really thin tape around the edges so that there is plenty of room for the bookmark to fit in. And here's the bookmark, and then I'll explain afterwards. So I wanted to make sure, so whatever you decide to do, you want to make sure there's room and it's not going to catch on the glued sides. So we'll take the red liner tape off this and I'll pop this down. It's got lots of static in red liner tape, and it tends to stick to things. Whoops. Okay, and the easiest way to do this is actually open the card up when you're putting it in. Okay, so I'm just going to lay that down roughly where I want it to be. Okay, and stick the sides down. And let's just see if our bookmark fits in. We'll talk about the bookmark as well afterwards. So you can see the bookmark fits in perfectly. Okay, so we know that that's okay. Right, the next thing I made, we'll talk about the flowers and the ribbon and everything that I did here. So when I made the card years ago, I used to have lots of different coloured ribbons, and you get that they don't always match with what you want. You think it's a pink ribbon and then it doesn't look anything like the pink that you're using. So quite a few years ago I stopped using, I saw somebody once, I think on the television on a craft programme, and I stopped using coloured ribbon, and I only ever now buy white ribbon, usually satin ribbon in different widths, so that when I want a specific colour for a card, I don't have to worry about trying to find it. So what I do, I'm going to just show you. Here's a piece of white ribbon, satin ribbon, and I use my alcohol markers. Find the colour that I like rather than having umpteen ribbons, and I just go over the top of it and colour it. Let it dry. Hey presto, you've got the perfect match. So it saves you having lots of things in your stock that you don't need. Just white satin ribbon, and I just have it in three widths. I've actually got a very narrow one which I've used for my bookmark, and this broader one tends to be the one I tend to use for bows. So I hope that's a help as well. Right, let's get this. So I'm going to stick the ribbon on. What I tend to do as well is use a little bit of red liner tape on the back of it to keep it in place. Used to use glue and things, but this is a lot less messy. Just a little piece of tape, and red liner tape is really quite strong, so it won't come off. Okay, and then I'm going to put the ribbon on the top of the card. Hey presto, that bit's done. Now I'm going to explain a little bit about the flower that I use as well. This flower I've made in advance before we started the class, but I'll show you what I did and I'll explain about it. I have in the past bought flower dies, and they've been individual ones, but then I came across, I've got 3 different ones. This is a John Next Door die, and the brilliant thing about this one, it's all in one sheet, so they're not tiny dies that you're liable to lose. And on this it cuts out 12 flowers, and the brilliant thing about it is on an A4 sheet of cardstock or a US letter size, it will cut 4 of these out, so you can end up off 1 sheet of paper, card, whatever you're using, you can end up with 48 flowers. And I tend to keep the piece that it's cut out as well, because they're handy if you want to use them as stencils, if you want to do a background. So I think that's what I call a 2 for 1. So I hope that's sort of helpful as well. what I do as well, the card I've used as well, it isn't actually card, it's paper, and it's got a pearlized topping on it. I get it from a company called Pink Frog in the UK, but I'm sure you'd be able to source it anywhere. But the good thing about it is it doesn't tear like paper. You can mould it, and it is a stronger structure even though it's only really light. So I've done a white flower, but I want it coloured, and I want to show you what I'm going to do, but I'll just show you this first. Here are the dies, and what I did to make this flower, but you can do lots of different things. I did this one just in a smaller flower with 2 of the large ones and a couple of little pink ones. And all I've done is get the actual petal and just squeeze them together. So just nip them together like that and go the whole way around. I'll just do 2 and then I can show you. So they're just folded up. I'll get another one. Show you. So I've got 2. Let's have a look. They're 2 of the medium size ones. So what I've done is I've done 2 large ones and done this with, and then layered them alternately, not sort of, you know, lying exactly over the top of each other. So I'll show you. So I've done that, and then all I did with them was put a little bit of glue in the middle of the flower and then line it up. Let's just get my tweezers, they help a lot. Just offset it and squish it down. Okay, I'll just move these tools because this is what I use my piece of foam for, and then do that. But I did 2 large, 2 medium, and just put 1 small in, and that's what I've ended up with. And again, on the white theme, I tend to just use white cardstock. Sometimes I colour it with ink before I start, and sometimes if I only want to just do the edges, I actually make it up first and then colour it. So what I do, I'll just show you, I've got, and I love these little ink pads. These are the Dewdrop ink pads. I don't do a lot of stamping, so to get great big ink pads that might dry out before I've ever used them, these are only little ones, so they're just the right size for what I want to use. Okay, so all I do, squish a bit of ink down onto the mat, go like that, and just go over the top, randomly dabbing it backwards and forwards. So I don't want the whole flower to be completely pink, and then ruffle it up and do it on the insides as well, so that you actually get the colour, but not, I don't want it to be completely solid colour. I just want little edges on it. So, and it's a shame really because you can't see it as well on the camera as I can see it here. Okay, so just, and say, because it's this pearlized paper, it's much stronger. You can be quite tough with it really. You don't have to be gentle. I'm just doing it so that I end up with the petals, so it curls them a little bit and it gives them some colour. I think that'll do. Okay, I don't know whether you can, I don't think you can see, but it has actually got pink hues to it, but sadly in the camera you perhaps can't see it as well. But I think you get the gist of it anyway. So I haven't been delicate with it. I've sort of roughed it about a little bit so it gives a little bit of a natural effect to it. Okay. So this is going to go onto the bottom of here. I think actually you can probably see it a little bit better now it's on the white of the card. And I've got a couple of leaves as well. So again, let's get some glue underneath it. Glue it on. we glue the leaves on as well. That's another thing, sometimes if I'm doing leaves I will actually use my alcohol pens to colour them. This time luckily I had some bits of cardstock that were scraps that were enough to sort of cut the leaves out with, so hopefully I'll pop that round there. Just stick it down, make sure it's stuck. Oops. I think I need a bit more glue on that. Okay. Yeah, that's worked, and I'll trim the ends off this, the stalk off the end of there. And pop this one on. Push that down. I think the card's looking quite pretty now. Just a couple of things that I forgot to get out that I need. I need these little things just to put on it. I forgot to get these out before. Just wanted these little bead things to put on the top of the pocket for where it's going to go. So I'll put one on there and one on either side. So that's looking quite pretty. And then the other thing is the bookmark, and I'm going to explain about the bookmark because I think it's absolutely beautiful, but it's not my design, and I'm going to put a link below this video so that you can actually see where to get it from. I'm trying to design one of my own, but at the moment I haven't quite done it. So that is the card complete with the bookmark. The bookmark comes in 3 pieces. And what I did when I'd done it, I thought I want somebody to be able to use it as a bookmark properly, so I've actually laminated it when I put it together. But before I did that, I've actually stamped something on the back. Now for this particular one, I've put every day may not be good, but there's something good in every day. You might think that's a strange thing to put on a birthday card, but the card that this one is going to, the friend that this card is going to, she's had quite a difficult year with some problems, and I thought that would be nice. She does read quite a bit, but I thought that might be inspiring for her on the back of there. So that, apart from the verse in the centre, is the card finished. Now what I've done, and I will put a link to this as well, this is 5 by 5.5. But to make sure that this fits inside, I've put double-sided tape on the back, and to make sure it fits inside and it's not too big, I've made it 4 3/4 wide by 5 1/4 deep. And I'll just move the bookmark off. As you can see, that fits in pretty perfect for the size. And the site, I'm going to say put a link to the site because I've used this site for years with these verses, and there are hundreds and hundreds of verses for every occasion, free to use, for not for commercial use, but the cards I make are just to send to friends, but if you want to use it. And I just had a look today when I was taking this verse out. There are 3,238 of birthday card verses alone. That doesn't count sympathy cards, get well cards, thinking of you. There are hundreds upon hundreds of verses, so it really is a site worth checking out. So I hope that's been a help as well. So I think that is the card finished, and I hope you like it. and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I would love it if you'd give us a thumbs up. We're only just starting out on our journey, and every little bit sort of helps. If you click the subscription button, you'll then get the videos when they're coming up. You'll get notified. So I hope you've enjoyed this today, and hopefully see you very soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.